Hiya everybody, welcome to episode 4 in the chronicles of going through Hambini's manifesto of utter BS and dishonesty and embarrassment, really, in my view. Well done if you've made it this far, and yeah, I'm going to be zooming through a bit today. As I think I've mentioned, I'm actually on holiday, so I'm just smashing through this epic Hambini correction whilst I'm on leave. So for those that are worried about this interrupting normal ZFC information content, don't stress. As soon as I'm back off leave and caught up on stuff from leave, normal programming will recommence. But yeah, in the meantime, whilst I'm on leave, I'm taking the opportunities when I can to correct all this crap and show Hambini 40 years because, yeah, for many reasons I feel it's obviously very important. Right. Yeah, so this one, in my view, goes to a frankly weird place for Hambini. So episode 3, we got around to in the document where he's attacking ZFC testing. And I went through and thoroughly corrected each point there. And this one, he seems to have just weirdly taken a pause on attacking the ZFC testing to delve into an area which I just don't think is his wheelhouse in terms of talking about bicycle chain lubrication and immersive waxing. He stepped into this space, really, it seems, in lieu with a couple of bicycle chain manufacturing experts. So I think it was Sedis and Reynolds. And they've seemingly had some things to say about immersive chain waxing, and Hambini has then seemingly brought it upon himself to jump on that bandwagon and attack immersive waxing. And it's just a bizarre place to go in the scheme of things with his attack on ZFC. Like, why are Hambini and 2 chain manufacturers deciding to go full bore attack on immersive waxing? It's just a bit weird. And as you'll see as we go through the document now, a number of the attacks, like the information that they're putting forward in the document, some of it is just so old and so thoroughly already debunked 1,000 times over by 1,000 different people and channels in the bicycle chain lubrication space. It's just bizarre that they are, going there. So some of these corrections I'm going to just zoom through really quickly because it's just utter ancient, already debunked BS. Some other things though, again, I don't know whether Hambini has completely taken out of context or twisted what the people from Sedis and Reynolds have told him, which would be a very on-brand thing for Hambini to do, in which case they may not be too happy with them. With him. Or if these chain experts from Sedis and Reynolds just frankly are fine with pulling stuff out of their butt and having no idea what they're talking about, which is weird for people at an expo representing chain manufacturer brands. Anywho, after we go through it, you'll be able to make up your own mind on which of those sort of, 2 potential paths is the correct one. To the chain experts, the one from Sedis and the one from Reynolds, I would say if you are upset or disagree with anything I'm about to put forward in my correction here, reach out, email me, tell me how I'm wrong, organize a call, tell me how I'm incorrect. Obviously always more than willing to have a chat about anything in the chain lubrication space, and if I'm incorrect on something and have some learning to do myself, I would absolutely love to do so, and I would do, obviously, verbatim, if you like, any correction back on this channel here to say, hey, they managed to prove me incorrect via X information, here we go. Otherwise, also, if you feel aggrieved because someone who is very well known for twisting information extremely dishonestly has done the same with what you spoke to him about, also feel free to let me know so that, you're not embarrassed by the content that we're about to go through. Very lastly, sorry, the sound quality is still not where I'd like it to be. The microphone's still sounding a bit distorted, and I cannot crack it as to why it suddenly started doing that. I think probably really starting about 3 weeks ago. I've ordered a new microphone. Should be here, hopefully, after all of this crap and when I get back to normal content. But sorry in the interim that it's still a bit distorted. So we were up to this point in the document. So all these points for a little bit are where Hambini is talking in conjunction with or conveying information from the chain experts from Sedis and Reynolds. And they state, they highlighted that this configuration, meaning the zero friction cycling main test, inherently favours lubricants with good damping characteristics such as those using immersed wax lubricants. Wax reduces wear by minimising chain vibration and prevents dirt and debris from embedding into the links, as the continuous wax layer leaves no pockets for contaminants to settle. Far out. Okay. The immersive waxes or paraffin wax does not reduce chain wear by minimizing vibration. So, in fact, probably one of the most common complaints or things that people can have with regards to immersive waxing is that after X amount of time, the chain can sound and feel relatively dry. You get a distinctive zzz, zzz, zzz sound on your pedal strokes, especially under load. That is the chain vibrating when the wax layer is very thin. Your more viscous, less viscous, or your heavier wet lubricants are typically the most damped. They will reduce chain vibration the most and not provide that sort of audible feedback. So sometimes the very silent running, heavily or sort of quite heavy wet lubricants can be your quietest, most damped chain, but that in no way means that it's going to be the most efficient nor the lowest wear. So in summary, that point is complete and utter BS. A solid lubricant is not the most damped on your chain at all, nor the least vibration, and even if it was either of those things, that would not be the mechanism by which it is reducing wear. So sorry for those that have heard this a lot in the past in coverage, so I'm just going to zoom through it quickly. The reason why immersive waxing for the good waxes, or even just a DIY paraffin wax, it's typically right at the very top of the league table in the ZFC testing as the lowest wear in what is the most realistic test of the chain and its lubricant in its actual use case on a bicycle drivetrain exposed to contamination. The reason is because being a solid lubricant, it has the highest contamination resistance. Very little contamination sticks on contact to a solidly lubricated chain as opposed to a chain that is lubricated with especially a wet lubricant where every particle of dust will stick on contact. Furthermore, any dust that does stick to the chain, and some will, same as dust sticks to your frame because it's whizzing through the air, so there's static, so you don't lube your frame, but if you go for a ride off-road, dust will stick to it and your wheel rims and so on. The dust that sticks to the outside of the chain doesn't have a pathway to get from outside the chain to inside the chain where all the pressure loads are and all the workload is to cause damage to and wear to those chain parts. It's pretty well stuck on the outside. It doesn't have a medium to get from out to in. Whereas, for instance, a wet lubricant, that's a great medium for the contamination to get from outside to deep inside the chain. It's why you get the black gritty stuff coming out from the chain. Lubes that claim that they clean as they lube, that they repel the dirt, dust and grime and so on. People think, all this crap that's coming out of my chain, thank goodness it got it out of there. But how do they think it got in there? It's a cycle. It's pumping it through. So as your wet lube chain is running around your drivetrain, that lubricant is being pumped in and out. So your contamination that is stuck to the wet lube and is on the outside of the chain gets cycled through the inside, where it causes a lot of wear damage because you've got abrasive contamination now under literally thousands and tens of thousands of PSI pressure load onto your pins, onto the inside of your roller bore. You don't want that in a lubricant. That in a lubricant under high pressure on any part is going to cause wear. Furthermore, when you do a relube, a normal, say, wet lubricant relube, you are putting around 3 mil of lubricant onto your chain. Your chain will be over 100 links long. You are putting then, say, around 0.03 of a mil per link of fresh lube over the top of whatever is running in there and whatever level of contaminated and abrasive that is. That is how much you are improving your lubricant to contamination ratio. So it's fairly minor. There is only so much that can do. And obviously, as you keep riding, that ratio of contamination to lubrication gets worse and worse. Your lubricant becomes more and more abrasive and less perfect lubricant. When you do a rewax with an immersive wax, you are putting your chain in hundreds of mil of 100% lubricant, swishing it around. You are diluting whatever small amount, and it's going to be smaller than, say, a wet lube, amount of contamination on your chain in hundreds of mil of 100% lubricant. So what goes back on and recoats your chain, it has now just been beautifully flush cleaned, and you have just beautiful clean lubricant lubricating all the parts of your chain. So those three components are the major reasons why immersive waxes are so hard for drip lubes to match. It is a solid, so it has the highest contamination resistance. It is a solid, so the contamination that does stick has a really tough time getting inside the chain where it's going to cause wear damage. And then when you do a re-wax, you're doing a flush clean every time you re-lube your chain. So imagine if, say, you're a dedicated wet lube user, aside from the initial two disadvantages, if every time you were to remove your chain and put it in 500 ml of that chosen lubricant and flush it through, over, say, 10,000 kilometers of cycling, you are going to have a much, much lower wear chain, because the lubricant running in your chain is typically going to be much less abrasive than if you were just putting 3 mil over the top. You're giving it a pretty big flush clean every time. There is nothing to stop anyone doing that aside from them having to buy a whole lot of lubricant and use a container and a lot of mess, because wet lubes are messier. But if someone wanted to try to have their lubricant match immersive waxing, they could at least do that. Every 300 to 500 kilometers, take the chain off your bike, put it in a 500 ml container of your chosen lubricant, swish it around to do your flush clean, take it out, wipe the excess, put it back on, and you will go great guns versus if you just drip some more on. Obviously, there are other maintenance things that you could do as well to try to match or have your drip lubricant match the inherent advantages of immersive waxing, but they all take time and effort to try to match what immersive waxing is giving you just for going the immersive waxing path. That is why immersive waxing has the inherent advantages. It's just, yeah, it's really tough. Hopefully that makes some clear sense. Nothing at all to do with dampening nor vibration. Nothing. That is going to be up there with possibly the stupidest stuff I've ever heard said in the chain lubrication space in this entire time I've been doing this. Okay, next point they say. However, both representatives, who are avid cyclists, pointed out that the test conditions do not accurately reflect real-world cycling. In Karen's setup, the chain remains on a single pair of cogs, failing to simulate the lateral forces and movement involved in actual gear shifting. In real riding scenarios, gear changes would cause the wax to flake off, significantly reducing its claim longevity and effectiveness. Oh my god, it's just so dumb. Okay, no test. I cannot test anyone's actual real-world riding, because I'd need about 150 million different tests. It's a benchmark test, so the chains are put through obviously the exact same test scenario, where we have no contamination for the first block, then we're introducing dry contamination, then we have no contamination again to allow the lubricants to clean as they lube and do their best to clear what was absorbed through the contamination block. Then we have a wet contamination block, and then another clean contamination block, and so on. So it's covering a range of different cycling conditions. And if, for instance, in the dry contamination block, a lubricant does particularly poorly, and you're a gravel cyclist or a mountain bike rider, then probably that lubricant is not going to be great for you, because it's shown that it's really bad once it's exposed to, dry contamination or dust. So it's a benchmark test. If you've got a lubricant that's 5 times more wear than another lubricant, and you ride off-road, you probably want to head towards the lubricant that showed it had a really low wear rate, even when it's exposed to a lot of dry contamination, versus the lubricant that showed it absorbed all of that and became as abrasive as a liquid bastard file. So it's a benchmark test. Your wear percentages in your riding are not going to match my test, because your riding is not my test. However, that benchmark comparison is going to remain. If it's crap when it's exposed to contamination in my test, it's going to be crap when it's exposed to whatever level of contamination you have in your riding. It's that goddamn simple. Next, the test does not remain on one cog. It rotates through cogs. Again, something Hambini would know if he bothered to actually read the test brief, or if he bothered to reach out and contact me, ask me some questions and some information about the test that he's trying to do a hatchet assassination job on. How many times is this now across the episodes where he has stated something as fact about my test that is not factual at all, because he didn't even bother to have the basic respect to his own audience to check the damn topic he's doing an assassination job on? It doesn't stay in the one cog, so it is not straight line across the whole test. It rotates through from cogs 1 through 6 as we alternate Also between big ring and small ring. So now, whilst it will not be putting the chain on the more extreme chain or high chain line angles that you will put in real world cycling, it is still putting the chain onto some chain line angles. Adding to that, it is not changing gears that causes the wax to flake off. Like, this is the sort of stuff that if somebody started cycling last week and they jumped onto Reddit to find out a little bit about chain lubes, this is the sort of stuff that I'd expect them to type out as a concern about immersive waxing. Not anyone who has spent any time in the chain lubrication space, such as people from chain manufacturers or representing, Reynolds and Sedis. When you first start cycling and when you put your chain on chain line angles, excess wax is what is going to be pressed out. The chain is chock full of wax when you first re-wax it, and as you first break in that wax layer or that wax treatment, so your first, anywhere usually from sort of 10 to 30 minutes of cycling, excess wax is pressed out and that flakes off. After that, you have what is the right layer of wax coating all the parts of your chain to give you a great treatment lifespan. After the initial excess has been pressed out, you do not flake wax off from inside your chain by changing gears. What will cause the most wear to the wax layer on the side, sides of, say, your rollers and side of the inner link plate that the side of the roller is going to be sliding on as you're riding, is if you are riding a lot of your kilometers on high chain line angles and therefore loading up those parts, especially if that is exposed to dust. So dust is going to get down between the side of the roller and the inner link plate, and then when it's loaded up from riding on a high chain line angle, that can give you a shorter treatment lifespan if you're doing a lot of that. So you might need to re-wax earlier at, say, 150 kilometers instead of 250 to 300 kilometers. You don't just go out, change some gears, have all your wax flake off, and have a 50 kilometer treatment lifespan from your wax. Like, it's just pulling stuff out of their butts that they don't know that they're talking about. So whether that's them or Hambini doing it for them, I don't know. But all of those points are categorically incorrect. The representatives argued that this critical factor, so this factor that's complete and utter BS and does not happen, is entirely ignored in Karen's testing, which skews the results in favour of immersive wax-based lubricants. A drip-type wax such as squirt would likely give similar levels of friction. Right, so that critical factor that doesn't actually occur, again, they're stating, based on what? What do they have to back their position that changing gears flakes your wax off your chain and that you'd get a crap result then out in the real world? What do they have to back that? What do we have aside from just basic logic on that, and also if they believe that that would somehow negate the results that the immersive waxes are achieving in the zero friction cycling main test? We have to back that up is a decade's worth for basically across myself, Molten Speed Wax. Silk has been in the game as well. Like, how many, just countless thousands of immersive waxes who are getting the greatest chain wear lifespan that they've ever seen, often many times greater than what they were getting before on their previous drip lubricant. We're getting numbers that a lot of people would never have really thought possible to get until they moved to immersive waxing, where we're getting cases of 15 to 25,000 kilometers to a genuine 0.5% wear mark. None of this, I got 10,000 miles out of my chain, but it's 2.5% worn. So actual people riding their actual bikes, actually changing gears, getting amazing chain wear lifespans, the likes of which drip lubricants just typically cannot match. Again, it's just such utter BS pulled out. If that's actually what they've said and not Hambini saying it for them, they need to not be working or representing a chain brand. So now when they say squirt would likely give similar levels of friction, what do they mean by friction? Do they mean outright efficiency? Do they mean the wear rate of the chain? Because if they're talking about one ride, potentially yes. Overall, Squirt's a great product, and especially at the price point, it's been a brilliant product for the people for probably 15 plus years now. So no issues, overall with Squirt being just a generally great lubricant choice for people to go to. The thing is that what happens after the first 300 kilometers and you relube your chain? and then the next time, and then the next time. At some point, you're going to need to reset the contamination in the chain, because the chain is operating externally and it's exposed to, all the stuff that's in the air that you're riding through. And especially if you're riding in harsh conditions, what's going on with the lubrication and contamination in your chain is changing quite rapidly. And unless you do something about it, you don't have this perfect lubricant running inside your chain, which is working like a bat out of hell with enormous pressure loads. You've got something that's abrasive going on in there. So you're going to have to do something to reset the contamination. You're going to need to clean the chain, get it back to square one again, and then start afresh. So again, just imagine if there were no bearing seals, if you took the seals off your bearings for your wheels and your bottom brackets and your pulleys, and you're riding around out there, how are your bearings going to feel after 1,000 kilometers? Even if you throw more grease over the top, there's still going to be all this crap running in there. They're going to be running rough and notchy and getting damaged. It's the same in your chain, except a whole lot worse, because the chain is much more exposed and it's working orders of magnitude harder than your bearings. The nuts and bolts of the story is that contamination is the killer. And that is again where immersive waxing has the advantage. Yes, you can get an amazing lifespan out of your squirt chain, but you're going to have to do a whole bunch of maintenance periodically. You're going to need to reset it and start afresh. The question for everybody when they're making their choice on what's the best lubricant path for them and their maintenance path is what's most practical and easiest for them for the outcome they want. Do they want to regularly flush clean their drip lubricant chain? Or is that going to be a hassle versus just popping the chain off and putting it in a pot and melting wax and swishing that around? Or are they just going to not really do that much maintenance, in which case you're going to pay for it with higher friction and higher wear? They're your option paths. And we're here to help people make the right option path, whether that is a top, we're obviously going to be recommending that you go with a proven top drip lubricant, be it wax or wet or immersive wax. That's what all the resources are there for. ZSC is not just immersive waxing. We are a whole lot more than that, which is why it's weird they're suddenly attacking immersive waxing and missing all the actual points about why it works and why it competes so well against drip lubes. So far, it's been a pretty bizarre mess. They also pointed out that the inconsistent chain tension and differing rear derailleurs across his three bikes would make the results largely unreliable and effectively meaningless. Alright, I've covered that in episode 3. But yes, if there is a tiny difference between, say, a 105 and a Ultegra derailleur, that is going to be in the bottom span of the chain, which is a very low load area, versus the top span of the chain, which is taking the actual 250 watt driven load. Any impact to the chain wear results is going to be extraordinarily minor, and well within the variability of the test, of which the chain itself is by far going to be the greatest variation, because no two chains are unfortunately the same, even though they are the same model every time. To blanket put out there that what would be an extremely minor tension difference in the bottom span of the chain, rendering a wear correlation test completely useless, is obviously just Hambini's attempt to try to assassinate all the very hard work of ZSC for 8 years. So thank you, Mr. Hambini. As mentioned, I just didn't. That's the out of all of what we've covered so far, that is the one tiny point that I'm giving credit that I should at least just standardize that. So I have ordered 3 new derailleurs, and that will be rectified. So the likely 0.001% of variation that might have been introducing into the test will be knocked out anyway. Practical implications of lubricant performance. The representatives from Sedis and Reynolds emphasize that any perceived performance advantage of wax chains over properly formulated drip lubricants is minimal, if it exists at all, in real-world conditions. Right, well, if they think that, then would they like to back that thought up? What have they got to show that the perceived advantage of immersive waxes is not translating in the real world? What testing have they got? Field testing from real world or control testing that shows that the immersive waxing is not giving any any actual advantage over drip lubricants? And what are they, in what context are they talking about? Are they talking about for racing at the world tour level, or for important races, be they short, medium, or very long and harsh? Or are they talking about for the average cyclist? In which case, for the average cyclist, where they're going to be obviously re-lubing or re-waxing, the advantage of immersive waxing just adds up and up and up versus drip lubricants over time, unless they're going to spend the cost and faff of doing reset maintenance of their chain. So in what context are they talking about the apparent lack of real-world advantage for immersive wax versus drip, and what have they got to back that statement up? Why are they just throwing it out there with nothing? They noted that any potential benefits of wax are largely negated by the inconvenience of frequently removing the chain for immersion, a cumbersome and time-consuming process that most cyclists are unlikely to undertake. In contrast, drip lubricants offer far greater convenience as they can be easily reapplied without dismantling the drivetrain. Alright, I mean, just take note of the wording that he uses, because he's trying to make everything sound, to the max as bad as possible. Believe it or not, you don't have to dismantle the drivetrain, whatever that actually means. You pop your chain off and you put it onto a swisher and you pop it onto your pot of wax and turn the wax pot on. I have covered this numerous times in the past. I've demonstrated the actual time it takes to re-wax a chain, and for a lot of people it is between 3 and 4 minutes of actual labor time to do basically then a beautiful reset and recoat of your chain. So it's like a minute to pop the chain off your bike and thread it onto a swisher, put it onto the wax pot, turn the pot on. You come back sometime later when the wax is melted, you swish it around and hang it to set. That takes like 30 seconds. And then before your next ride, you find for most people somewhere between 1 and 2 minutes to break the wax bond and reinstall the chain back on your bike. So it's an average of 3 to 4 minutes actual labor time to do a beautiful reset of your chain. It is really difficult to do a good flush clean of your chain to reset the contamination there and re-lube it in less time than that, and generally more faffy. And not only that, the rise of the, popularity of the hybrid or combo approach, where you use a compatible wax strip lubricant with your immersive wax. So you start waxed, you re-lube with that wax strip, same as you normally do with any other drip. So do that for about, say, 5 times, and then as opposed to doing a solvent or degreaser flush clean of your chain, you just pop the chain off and re-wax it to reset any contamination that's starting to build up, which with the compatible wax strips is typically very low due to, again, the typically high contamination resistance of wax lubricants versus wet lubricants. Alright, I mean, just take note of the wording that he uses, because he's trying to make everything sound, to the max as bad as possible. Believe it or not, you don't have to dismantle the drivetrain, whatever that actually means. You pop your chain off and you put it onto a swisher and you pop it onto your pot of wax and turn the wax pot on. I have covered this numerous times in the past. I've demonstrated the actual time it takes to re-wax a chain, and for a lot of people it is between 3 and 4 minutes of actual labor time to do basically then a beautiful reset and recoat of your chain. So it's like a minute to pop the chain off your bike and thread it onto a swisher, put it onto the wax pot, turn the pot on. You come back sometime later when the wax is melted, you swish it around and hang it to set. That takes like 30 seconds. And then before your next ride, you find for most people somewhere between 1 and 2 minutes to break the wax bond and reinstall the chain back on your bike. So it's an average of 3 to 4 minutes actual labor time to do a beautiful reset of your chain. It is really difficult to do a good flush clean of your chain to reset the contamination there and re-lube it in less time than that, and generally more faffy. And not only that, the rise of the, popularity of the hybrid or combo approach, where you use a compatible wax strip lubricant with your immersive wax. So you start waxed, you re-lube with that wax strip, same as you normally do with any other drip. So do that for about, say, 5 times, and then as opposed to doing a solvent or degreaser flush clean of your chain, you just pop the chain off and re-wax it to reset any contamination that's starting to build up, which with the compatible wax strips is typically very low due to, again, the typically high contamination resistance of wax lubricants versus wet lubricants. One representative even suggested that motorcycle chain wax could deliver 90% of the benefits of a full wax treatment without the hassle and at a fraction of the cost. What the flying Lord Farquhar does that mean? And how has he arrived at 90%? Has he tested this motorcycle chain wax versus the top immersive waxes? Or has he pulled a 90% figure just purely out of his butt based on what man feels? So they're saying that because it negates the inconvenience of needing to remove the chain, is this a spray-on motorcycle wax? Does this chain expert know that motorcycle chain lubricants for pretty much all the motorcycle chains unless they're talking about the really low sort of power ones, like for go-kart level, moped, that sort of stuff. Most motorcycle chains are O-ring chains. The actual lubricant for where all the work's taking place around the pin is sealed in by an O-ring. Most motorcycle lubricants are therefore designed to just protect the outside of the chain from rusting and to protect the O-ring from drying out. They don't have to do the workload and the job that your bicycle chain lubricant has to do. They also need to not fling off at typically much higher chain speeds than what we do with our pedaling, unless you're Chris Froome on a really hot day. They have a completely different purpose or job brief than what your bicycle chain lubricant has. So where are they pulling this crap from? So I haven't had the time or resources to test any motorcycle chain lubricants to see how they go in on the test on the bicycle chain. For all I know, like maybe his motorcycle chain wax spray would outperform any immersive wax by 3 times. Or maybe it's 10% as good. I don't know. Thing is, he doesn't know. How do you just pull that figure out of your butt without having any actual testing or anything to back that number? It's like, I don't know, maybe light oils for RC bearings. Maybe that's going to be the best chain lubricant ever. I don't know. Maybe the oils that they use to lubricate the jewels in a Rolex watch would be the best chain lubricant ever. Or the best lubricant for your pulley wheels. I don't know. Nobody knows. I can't just pull it out of my butt and say, hey, this product in a completely different use case is going to be X% better or as good as a lubricant designed for that specific use case. What is going on? How about we just use motorcycle tyres then? Why don't we use those on our push bikes? I reckon we would get about 100,000 kilometres out of a set of tyres and probably 100 times less punches. Like, they're a different product for a different use case. We're going to have a whole lot more rolling resistance even if you made something to fit your bike frames, which we seem to be getting there. But like, how do you do that? How do you just pull a product from a different use category and pull a figure like that out of your butt about how good it's going to compare to top lubricants tested in the actual use case category? Like, I just find that stunning. Absolutely stunning. Has anyone else noticed that, Mr. Engineer likes to be all precise about things sometimes and then yet allows crap like that to come in? Just literal figures pulled out of someone's butt going into his document. I mean, he's typed this document up. He's put that in his document. Like, far out. Are you kidding me? Ultimately, both industry experts stress that while immersed wax lubricants might excel in controlled testing environments, such results do not always translate to everyday cycling conditions and are largely affected by the rider's local climate and shifting patterns. Again, like I've covered this about obviously the test being rather obviously a benchmark test. It cannot mimic anyone's actual cycling, but because the test is for thousands of kilometers long on an actual bicycle drivetrain and actually has contamination blocks, both dry and wet, we get a very good picture of a lubricant's overall performance, and there's a lot that you can take from those different test blocks to then apply it to your own cycling and what you typically most cycle in, and so which products are going to be most suitable for you. I'm not going to harp on that. I mean, the fact, like, if that is not obvious to Mr. Engineer reviewing the testing, when that is obvious to basically everybody else who reviews the test, again, what does that tell you? And how is that not obvious to the chain experts? They either have zero knowledge of the actual ZFC test and are just talking, as we've seen, out of their ass with zero knowledge, or it's Hambini doing that for them. Alright, they argue that the test setups fail to account for real-life factors such as gear shifts, chain flex, and wax flaking are unreliable predictors of lubricant's performance on the road. If only we had countless thousands of customers and also myself with over 125,000 of immersive wax experience to know how immersive waxing actually goes in the real world. I mean, I'm not going to harp on that again. It's just so immensely stupid. One estimated that under certain conditions, 50 kilometers of real-world riding would be sufficient for a drip lubricant to surpass the efficiency claims of immersive wax, occurring even sooner with frequent cross-chaining. Right, well, can they please supply me their data where they have tested some drip lubricants and immersive waxes and give me the data where the drip lubricants are surpassing the performance of the immersive waxes after 50 kilometers. Where are they pulling this crap from? There are some extremely long-lasting wet drip lubricants, like say Silka Synergy, that will, in especially say dry road cycling conditions where there's not that much contamination, a treatment of Silka Synergy will just go on and on and on. And there will be a point where the immersive wax treatment is going to have its performance start to give out. If we're talking about a similar comparison in dry road conditions, then it's going to be sort of, again, depending on your power, how much you do ride on high cross-chain angles. It's not going to depend at all how often you shift gears, because the chain and the wax do not give one flying hoot about how often you're changing gears, because that has zero impact. But at some point, so maybe after 400 kilometers, 500 kilometers, 600 kilometers, the Synergy is going to still be trucking on fine, and the immersive wax is going to be starting to give out. But that's okay, because the general recommended re-wax treatments are earlier than that, or when you start to hear and feel the chain sounding and feeling obviously dry. Re-wax, just like you would re-lube if your lubricant was starting to sound and feel dry. A lot of wet lubricants also can have a very short treatment lifespan, or much more comparatively shorter than immersive wax. There are many drip lubricants on the market that only have treatment lifespans that are really effective for a couple of 100 kilometers. So your immersive wax treatment is going to well outlast them in terms of staying, lubricating your chain properly and keeping it low friction and low wear. It's just such a stupid statement to make. If we take this off-road out into the world of dirt and dust, this is where drip lubricants really struggle to match the treatment longevity of the immersive waxes. One, because an immersive wax is 100% lubricant. A lot of drip lubricants, especially drip waxes, can be like 50% water, 50% lubricant. And some drip lubricants, the wet lubricants, their lifespans really vary quite dramatically from one product to another, but they are going to be attracting contamination and becoming abrasive from kilometer zero, where the immersive wax is going to be resisting that contamination and friction increase for a very long time. So many factors as to why that statement is so stupid. Again, back it up. If they think that statement's true, show me the data of where this is occurring. Both representatives emphasize that maintaining chain cleanliness is the single most crucial factor in achieving low friction and optimal performance. My God, a true statement. Absolutely. That is absolutely dead on. Chain cleanliness, so the least amount of contamination in your lubricant, that is the single most crucial factor in achieving low friction and optimal performance. You know what is really easy at maintaining chain cleanliness? A solid lubricant that's reset every time you re-lubricate it. Right, let's go on. They argued that no lubricant, regardless of its properties, can compensate for the increased friction and wear caused by dirt, grime, and debris buildup. So I'm like, yes, yes, which is why immersive waxing dominates. It's great to see they're now arguing for immersive waxing. To ensure the best possible friction performance, they advocated for deeper cleaning methods, including ultrasonic cleaning and the use of specialized solvents designed to thoroughly remove contaminants from every part of the chain without attacking or corroding the metal. Ultrasonic cleaning in particular is highly effective because it uses high-frequency sound waves to agitate and dislodge particles that traditional cleaning methods might miss, ensuring a deeper clean that minimizes friction. So we've gone from removing your chain to do an immersive wax is this huge cumbersome process that most people are unlikely to do, to, hey, you know what you should do to keep your chain awesome? Ultrasonic cleaning, because that's so much less time consuming and faff than popping your chain in a pot of wax that you melt. I do a lot of ultrasonic cleaning and have an ultrasonic cleaning guide for those that wish to do that, both for just general maintenance as well as race chain prepping and maintenance of their race chains. And to do ultrasonic cleaning properly, it's a process, and it sure takes a bit of time. You really want to have the right solvent. You don't want to be typically using stuff like, say, turpentine, or a lot of degreasers. You can get flammable vapors and unshielded electronics. So as a general rule, that's a no. Often those products also have extremely low cavitation, so they just don't degas and cavitate well, so you have very low actual ultrasonic scrubbing or cleaning power using traditional solvents or degreasers. You are generally much better off using an actual ultrasonic specific cleaning solution. They're generally not that cheap, and you have to take the step of actually, obtaining those. You've got to hunt those down and buy them. Then you need to degas those solutions and then run your chain, and then how many bars are you going to do? Like, are you kidding me? That's the easiest way to maintain the performance of the lubricant in your chain, is to just widespread to the masses recommend ultrasonic cleaning versus 3 to 4 minutes of labor time of doing an immersive rewax. Like, how did we get to this point? How did this document swing around to this place from where they've originally started and what they've originally stated with regards to the faff and hassle of dismantling your course? But what is that? Is that on bike, off bike, ultrasonic, or is it popping it into a pot of wax that you melt? Including periodic degreasing and relubrication to prevent the accumulation of dirt that can degrade the chain's efficiency over time. According to these experts, a clean chain not only reduces friction but also extends the lifespan of the chain and drivetrain components, ultimately providing better performance and value for cyclists. Alright, let's duck across to chain maintenance guide that we have on the Zero Friction Cycling website. I mean, Zero Friction Cycling is not all immersive wax or go home. We have a lot of resources for immersive waxing because we get the most questions about immersive waxing. That is the nature of the product. If somebody's looking at immersive waxing, they will typically have more questions about what to do and how to do it than if they are going to drip something onto their chain. But no matter what is the right path for you based on your own preferences and preferred maintenance, we have a maintenance guide which covers immersive waxing for all conditions, so how to best look after your chain and the wax. We have the guide covering immersive wax plus using that in conjunction with a top compatible wax strip lubricant. So what's the best maintenance approach for all cycling conditions there? If you're using other typical wax types, what's the best approach for maintenance there? Or if you're doing wet lubricants, it is all covered. We are here to help you with your chosen lubricant. The best thing that we're trying to do is get you to at least choose a proven top product, be it wet, wax, or immersive wax, so that you are giving your chain and its drivetrain the best chance to remain low friction and wear, and then you follow the maintenance guide on or off bike and specific to your type of riding, and you are going to be golden. Their stance challenges the common misconception that a specific lubricant can singularly transform chain performance. Instead, they argue that the real key lies in a diligent cleaning regimen that ensures the lubricant, whether wax, wet or dry, can perform at its best in a contaminant-free environment. It's not a common misconception that a specific lubricant can singly transform chain performance. Simply, a huge amount of testing and real-world testing and real-world experience by many of the biggest teams, athletes and manufacturers in this space have found that immersive waxing and the top wax strip lubricants typically dominate because of all of what we spoke about before. There are still some great wet lubricant options, especially if you're riding on road and not taking wet lubricants out into the world of dirt and dust, where that's mostly a mismatch of product to purpose. A bit like running ice spike tires on bitumen. It's just not quite the right product to purpose. Some things are particularly well suited to a purpose, and for bicycle chains, due to waxes, both drip and immersive, higher contamination resistance and lesser ability of the contamination on the outside to move from outside to inside, it is just particularly well suited for lubricating a bicycle chain and the challenging environment that needs to operate in. We are not saying that any one will singularly transform. However, there is a huge amount of information from multiple sources, many multiple sources, of the advantages of top wax strips and immersive waxing versus wet lubricants, especially in high contamination conditions. Say it very clearly here themselves. The real key lies in a diligent cleaning regimen. I mean, that, again, tell me, what is easier? Popping the chain off and swishing it around in a pot of melted wax to reset your chain, or faffing around with degreasers and solvents which you are disposing of where? Imagine the millions of households around the world, if they're all doing diligent cleaning using degreasers and solvents, Where is that all ending up, as opposed to just popping it into a pot of wax? And again, ultrasonic path is certainly not less time and faff than doing a simple 3 to 4 minutes actual labor time rewax. So the real key that they themselves state, basically all of the last parts of these points that we have covered, they have just made a great argument themselves for immersive waxing versus trying to maintain drip lubricant chains. It's there on this just astounding section. The representatives underscore that investing in proper cleaning tools and techniques is far more impactful than relying solely on lubricant choice when it comes to minimizing friction and maximizing efficiency. It depends on your lubricant choice. Some lubricants are a really easy clean with just about any solvent. Some lubricants are a really tough clean and often require or recommended very powerful solvents. And some of them pretty much a hammer and chisel to go along with it. It depends on what your lubricant choice is, how long in between maintenance that you're going, and the environment that you're riding in. So, yeah, depending on all those things, you may need to invest in a whole bunch of stuff, or not too much, or you could have a pot with some wax in it. Oh, all right, I think it's getting back to me on the next episode. All right, so thankfully get to wrap up that one. I have no idea what's going on with that section. Why has he gone from attacking me to attacking immersive waxing? Does he think that I invented immersive waxing? I don't even make an immersive wax product. We just go by what the test results obviously point towards as the best lubricant options, as well as some pretty basic logic and physics to go along with why certain products are dominating for use on your bicycle chain. I mean, these people have just pulled figures and assumptions out of their absolute clackers based on nothing, and yeah, putting figures out there that they can in no way back. And if I or anyone else was to do that sort of stuff, you would expect that rightfully he would be ripping that sort of behavior to shreds, and yet he's doing that crap himself. Like, that whole section to me is just so weird, so amateur hour and imprecise, and like, I have no idea what's going on. It was a weird trip. These type of questions, if they, people who've been thinking about immersive waxing or chain lubrication for 5 minutes, just normal people emailing in any of those questions and concerns, they're not stupid questions or concerns for the average person out there cycling. But if you're doing this sort of document or trying to attack immersive waxing or anything like this, have some just basic knowledge. And if you're going to put that crap, figures out there, back it up with something. Like, I've just found that whole section the most unreal amateur hour, and I can't believe that he's actually put all that crap in his document. But that's just me. Tell me if I'm wrong. All right, let's wrap it there. Till the next one. Thanks, everybody. Back on me next time with chain measuring and chain weight checking, so we get to have the fun of showing you how Hambini can't do grade 5 maths and weirdly ends up with a E. coli analogy, which is quite fun. Okay, till then.